Marhaba, and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill, where real people connect.
Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm Hilmarie Hutchison, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by someone who is passionate about living a sustainable life and that has been changing the lives of women in the UAE for the last 3 years. I am so excited to introduce Natalie Hobbs, the founder of Modibodi Middle East. Natalie, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. And did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Some of our listeners will definitely already know your story, but for those who don't, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and how you ended up here in the UAE?
Sure. So I am from Australia, along with my husband. We arrived in Dubai 5 years ago with our two girls, who were 2 and 4 at the time. And we had, like a lot of families, I guess, we had moved over here for my husband's job. I very reluctantly came along. I followed about 4 months later, trying to stay in Australia as long as possible. And yes, with that mindset, not surprisingly, I did not really enjoy living here in Dubai at the start, but very quickly, within about 3 months, after I made a couple of friends, basically, Dubai started to grow on me. And once I learnt my way around the supermarket and had at least navigated some of the roads and wasn't getting lost every time, I really grew to love Dubai. And now I never want to leave. So that's my story in a nutshell of us arriving in Dubai. And 3 years ago, 2 years sort of into living here, I started my own business, and that's Modibodi.
Wow, so exciting. You know what? That's so often we hear that same story. People who come to Dubai just for a short time or not committed, and once you get used to the lifestyle, you never want to leave. It's such a fantastic place, right?
And that's what actually kept me, that's what I really clung on to in those early months. It was like, it has to grow on you, because everyone I meet here came for 1 or 2 years and then they all stay. And I thought something has to change, and it did.
Fantastic. Now, let's jump right in and talk about a topic that I know is important to you, sustainability. Can you tell us, what does sustainability mean to you?
It's almost not even a choice. It's just something that we have to do, and it's not difficult to do. But without it, we don't have a planet B. We need to take care of our planet. We need to make changes so that our children, our grandchildren, and their grandchildren can continue, to have a beautiful life here.
Absolutely, so true. And can you give our audience some practical tips on what they could do to live a more sustainable life?
Sure. I think there is so much information out there already, and you don't have to look very far to find new products, different ways of doing things. I think there are so many wonderful people and companies that are really doing their best to give consumers and communities easy choices to make. Whether it's you stop buying all the bottled water, you have your own reusable bottles, you have your water filters under your sink. It's not taking the plastic bags from the supermarket, and it's wearing Modibodi instead of using pads and tampons when you have your period. Be really mindful of the consumption of electricity and water, and also cutting down on that mass consumerism. It's the fast fashion, it's the toys that are just made of plastic, covered in plastic, that children will throw out after a couple of plays. Just really sort of almost just bringing it back to basics, but doing things that is easy for you to do. There are so many changes that you can make that's not difficult, that that they enhance your life. And it's about education. And I think schools are doing a wonderful job now. Often it's the children teaching the parents about sustainability or wanting to get those practices in at home.
That's absolutely brilliant. Yes. As you say, there's so many different things. We're not limited in the places where we can find opportunities to be more sustainable.
And, some things are going to be easier, for others to adopt, and, since COVID, I think the consumption of single-use plastic must have gone, that has just skyrocketed. So, I think any changes that we can make in other areas of our life to kind of shift that balance is it's just so important.
Now, I know when I met you a few years ago, you had just started Modibodi UAE. Can you tell us how you got involved with that?
Yes, and it actually is like my green pill moment. So late one night, browsing on Facebook, I came across an ad for period-proof underwear. It's really nice to think that something really positive can come out of Facebook. But saw an ad for period-proof underwear. This would have been 3.5 years ago, and I had never heard of period-proof underwear before, like many, many, many people here in the UAE and around the world. And so started to do research. And yes, it really was underwear that you could wear when you had your period. You didn't need to use something else. And then so once I started researching the product category, I kept coming across Modibodi as number one in all of these reviews by bloggers and magazines, saw that Modibodi was Australian, and then I thought, that's it. I want to bring Modibodi to the UAE.
What was that like? What were the challenges you had in order to bring the business to the UAE and setting up a business of that kind in the UAE?
I think that there would be a lot of challenges, and it was just something small. It wasn't going to be this massive empire that I was building. I just wanted to give it a go. And for me, it was just very much, this product looks amazing. It's not available here. Let's see what I can do to bring it here. And maybe it was just being naive, and it's probably good that I was naive, but I just thought, let me bring it here, set up a website, sell it online just like they do in Australia, and just see where it goes. And then you just learn. I mean, the support network here in the UAE, I think, is amazing. Whether it's as a person that's just arrived in the UAE with or without children, someone who's starting up a business for the first time. I met really wonderful ladies online, in person, and then they would put me in touch with someone else. And, it just starts off slowly. I think, I rushed out to get bags after the first order had come, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need a bag to deliver. Now there's someone in Abu Dhabi who's ordering. I need a courier. So you just sort of play catch up. But I think it's not a bad way to start. If you want to have everything in place before you start, then I don't think you ever will. So yeah, it was just step by step.
So just jump in and get started. So what advice would you give to someone starting a business in the UAE?
Don't be put off that you're going to need all of this capital, or that it's all going to be so hard, or it all needs to be really big to start with. It doesn't. My first order, I think I brought over from Australia in a suitcase. And we did just start off small. We just had a few, maybe I had a dozen items, and I didn't have every size. I didn't have every color. And you get so excited when those first orders start to come through. But yeah, start small. You probably don't need to go and borrow lots of money. Just start with a small portion of savings. Invest that, see where you go. And also, you hear this a lot, but it is really important. If you can find something that you're really passionate about, it's really going to help, because there are going to be so many times along the journey where for whatever reason, you think it's too hard, I don't want to do it anymore. And so you really need that underlying passion, that underlying drive that's going to help you stay the course. And another thing would be to build up that support network. And it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be every single person that you speak to that thinks that, it's a fantastic idea. But I've been really lucky. My husband is incredibly supportive, and there have been times where I would have quit if it wasn't for him saying, it's all part of business. This is what you've got to do. Look at how far you've come. This is just another thing to work through. So having support of family and also your friends and other business owners, that's been really invaluable. They're the ones that I can really share the challenges and the celebrations with. That's been fantastic.
That's excellent. I've heard that so many times from guests on the podcast, that having a network or tapping into a network, reaching out to people, asking for help pays huge dividends. So don't be scared to ask.
That's right.
There's people out there that are willing to help.
And you only have to be someone only has to be one chapter ahead, or, one step further ahead in the journey, and they can help you. And it's wonderful. And I find people here are so accommodating. They are, really generous with their time, with their advice, because there are so many people here who they come here and they do start a business, and perhaps it's something they've never done before. Each country, it's always going to be unique. So even if you have run a business in Australia or the UK or India or America, it's going to be different here. That local experience is just so helpful.
Now let's talk a little bit more about Modibodi. What is it that makes it so unique? For our audience who's never heard of it, can you explain what it is, how it works, what it does?
Sure. So Modibodi, it's leak-proof underwear. So whether that's for periods, light bladder leaks, discharge, it is underwear you wear when you have your period, all these other things, the light bladder leaks, discharge, and it's absorbent. So you do not need to wear a panty liner, a tampon. All the Modibodi underwear has a thin padded gusset. It's just 3 millimeters for 4 of the 5 absorbencies. So very thin, but that padded gusset is made up of 3 different layers of material. So you never know how detailed people want to hear, but so 3 layers of material. The top layer wicks away moisture, so you stay feeling dry, fights bacteria, stops any smell. The middle layer is where the absorption is, and the bottom layer is extra waterproofing so that there are no leaks. There are 5 different absorbencies. We've got our super light absorbency all the way up to our maxi 24. And so even if you have a heavy period, you can wear Modibodi. Our maxi 24 absorbency absorbs 50 mil, which is the equivalent of 10 regular pads.
What kind of research has mind-boggling to think that it works, but it does?
Christy is an Australian mum. She's the one that came up with the idea for Modibodi, 10, 11 years ago. And so she spent a couple of years designing the technology. She was very much knew she had to tackle it from a scientific angle. And so she met with scientists, designers. There were tests that she really, really did her research and came up with this amazing product. It's all of our absorbencies. It's all scientifically tested, and the technology is patented. So she's really done her work. And I mean, it's not a product that you really want. You can't afford for it to fail. So it really is an amazing product.
Talking about periods, we know that menstruation and monthly cycles has always been somewhat of a taboo subject, especially in some cultures. What do you think can be done to change the narrative and make it more acceptable to talk about?
Podcasts like this are amazing. So thank you so much for wanting to talk about periods and Modibodi. It is changing. I really do believe it's changing. The stories I hear of women, the way that they talk about what it was like when they were children compared to now, you see and hear of a massive shift. Mainstream media really needs to come to the party. I think once they start opening up more and including articles and interviews about this, I think it's really going to help. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but you're like, as a child, I still remember like ads for pads and you would see the blue ink on the pad. We've come a long way since then. Education, I think the way that the schools approach it, that's really important because for some girls, that's going to be the first time that they've heard of menstruation and period and, products that they need to use. The way we really talk about it, I think, is so important, even if perhaps we didn't have the best experience at growing up, perhaps either when it started and you weren't prepared or ways that it changed your life. I think it's really important to present to our girls that it doesn't have to be like that, that it's, one, I think it's amazing. Our bodies were made to menstruate. It's how we have children. So it's not something that people should ever be ashamed of. And with products like Modibodi, it just makes it a non-event. As some of my customers say, with the swimmers, periods are a non-event in our household now, and they love it. And it's also really important to educate boys as well. It's not just having the conversations with our daughters, but also our sons. And it's also really important for our husbands to be comfortable talking about it with our daughters.
What advice would you give to parents, counselors, or teachers about how to broach the topic and to normalize the conversation around this very natural aspect of a woman's journey?
The education is key, just explaining, why we menstruate and also, how interesting it is. It can tell us so much about our bodies and that, whilst as they get old, like as their journey starts, and if some are experiencing pain, like, yes, pain is common, but it doesn't mean that it's normal. Like there are things that you can do to manage these things. And I'm not talking about like medication or going on the pill as such, but lots of natural remedies, tracking your period and just learning about it. It's a coming of age, it's puberty, it's part of becoming a woman. And that education, I think, also needs to continue. I'm 46 now. And so now the conversations are all about perimenopause and menopause. And women are facing the same challenges as I think our teenage girls were, that people don't really talk about it. They don't know what the symptoms are. They don't know what to expect. So it's something that needs to happen along all stages of the journey. Fertility, falling pregnant, not falling pregnant.
Natalie, you've had such excellent success so far. Congratulations on doing so well with Modibodi. Tell us what else is, or what's next in your future? Do you have anything that you're planning? Do you have any exciting future goals you can tell us about?
Thank you. So, I mean, for me, it really is all about Modibodi. I'm finally at the point where I have found something that I am passionate about, that I don't feel like it's work when I'm spending time on it. So I really feel like I've only scraped the tip of the iceberg here as far as period-proof underwear goes here in the UAE and the region. There's more than 4,000 girls and women in the UAE wearing Modibodi, but there are still so many who have never heard of it, don't know that it exists. And then there are those that have heard about it, but are so skeptical that they think I would never give that a try. That could easily keep me busy for the next 5-10 years, I think, just trying to raise awareness of period-proof underwear. There are so many reasons why you would make the change from pads and tampons. And so, just wanting to share my knowledge, just educate girls and women, and even if they decide that it's not Modibodi that they buy, just at least just making them aware so that they can make informed decisions. I think up until sort of 5 years ago, for us the choice was really pads or tampons. You have to use something, whereas now there are other choices. There's the cup, there's the period proof underwear, there's reusable liners. There's so much more still to do in this area. If I can make a difference that way, I'll be very happy.
Well, you already are, so well done on that. Now we have come to the segment of our show where I will ask you a few rapid fire questions, our version of a game show.
Okay.
Can you name one thing on your bucket list?
Oh, it's actually to go to the Maldives, and we are booked to go in December. I've wanted to do this forever. Coming from Australia, it's always seemed so far away. We've been in Dubai for 5 years now, and we're going, and I am thrilled.
Fantastic. Excellent. What is your go-to comfort food?
Oh, ice cream.
Who would be one guest that you would like to invite for dinner that you cook for them?
Robin Sharma. I just find him so inspiring and so motivating. I would love to sit down for dinner with him.
Your favorite restaurant in Dubai?
I have to say Buddha Bar, only because that's my husband took me when I first arrived.
Oh, nice. And what is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you are?
Oh, I hope this doesn't sound too soppy. It's telling my girls that I love them, and it's a big hug. They are my world, as I'm sure every mum's, children's their world. But yeah, I always making sure that I connect with them, and I would love to do it more often and to do more things. But a day would never pass where that doesn't happen.
Lovely. Now, before we wrap up, we would like to do our green pill moment. Now, I know you have sort of touched on it already, but for our green pill moment, what was your green pill moment, the action or event that was the turning point for you or your career?
Sure. It was seeing that Facebook ad for period-proof underwear, which, I never knew how that, I never envisaged how that would change my life. So, fast forward 3.5 years, I run my own business. It's a completely new product category. Periods is all we pretty much talk about in my house. So with a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, I think that's come in really handy. The women I've met, the friends that I've made, and it's all because of Modibodi, and it's all because of that ad that I saw.
Thank you so much for sharing your fantastic and your inspiring story with us today. I mean, what I took away from what you've just said is if something is new, we can just go in and start. If you're passionate about something, you can make all the difference. So I am so sure our audience will thoroughly enjoy this conversation as much as I have.
Actually, there is one thing that I would love to add. It's one that I have learned, and it's taken a while. I think it's so easy to compare yourself to all these other businesses that seem to be so much bigger, so much more successful, who seem to be so on top of things. And I think it's really important. Yes, you can admire them and appreciate what they've done, but you don't need to compare yourself. And there's a picture that jumps to my mind. There's a picture of Jeff Bezos. He's sitting in a really tiny study on an old computer with books stacked up, and he's got Amazon written in handwriting, I think, on his wall. And it's don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 1000. Every company you see, everyone starts off small, everyone starts off at the beginning, and you need to start to grow.
That's excellent advice. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Excellent. So before we say goodbye, Natalie, could you please tell our listeners where they can find and follow you? We'll also put this in the show notes.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So Modibodi is sold online and it's at Modibodi, MODIBODI.AE. That's the website where you can order everything. We do have our Instagram account, which is Modibodi_Middle East. There is a small range of Modibodi available at Eggs and Soldiers and TKD. So between those two stores, we're in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Ras Al Khaimah. And you'll also find us at events throughout Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Excellent. Thank you again so much for joining me today, Natalie. It was so excellent, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely talking with you. Thank you so much for having me.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.